Thanks for tuning in to Power Athlete Radio. This week we welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Ed Cosner. This former rugby player, Highland Games competitor, and powerlifter has coached pro athletes of nearly every background. He still bangs weights almost daily and assists with developing the strength and conditioning programs of rugby teams worldwide. When you've done as much as Coach Cosner, you have a few remarkable stories to tell. Some Cosnerisms include his affinity for dynamic work with plyo med balls and his belief in stretching regularly. Ed talks about how you can measure a lot of things in performance, but you can't measure toughness. This is the kind of insight that can only come from working with the best and most dedicated performers in sport. What inspired the creation of the XXL Stout t-shirt size, and why does he liken the thought of his personal overspeed training to rolling a can of beans downhill? And finally, we get Luke's explanation as to why his claim that he is medically allergic to the deadlift is legit. This is episode 169.
Power Athlete Nation, what is up? You have John, Tex, and Luke in a hot, steamy room in Southern California.
It's hot.
The current temperature in the room is 79 degrees. We're going to heat that up with this show of this episode of Power Athlete Radio, the premier podcast in strength and conditioning.
It's true. If you keep saying it over and over again, eventually people will start believing you. And I think we're there.
They were, and then you just blew it.
No.
But I think
directionally.
See, here's what Tex isn't getting. We've been saying that line as well for the past 6 weeks. That's part of the joke. Tex, of course, doesn't get the repeat.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't like to beat a dead horse, which is why he'll never make it as a professional strength coach.
Enough about us. Enough about the show, because that doesn't matter. It is just a platform to connect you, our listeners, with the world's best strength coaches and brightest minds in various industries. And today is exactly that. We're putting you in touch with Ed Cosner, who has honestly a resume that's too long to read and has worked with star champion athletes, guys like the Franks brothers, the All Blacks, and is also the founder, we're told, proprietor, inventor of the 3XL Stout line of apparel, which is a shirt that is 3XL through the chest and back, but has the torso length of a medium, because Ed is stout, powerful, but girthy from carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders for all these years. Is that true, Ed?
Yeah, that's mine. The 3XL stout, because just because you got meat doesn't mean you got to be tall. I mean, well, shit, I'm tall, man. Garden domes usually aren't this height. If I stretch out, I could be almost 5'10".
Yeah, we were sharing breakfast. We were telling you we were with Aaron this morning when we're like, we got Ed on. He's like, okay, you got to find out a way to throw this in. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna open it.
Figures. Yeah, he invented that one when he gave me a shirt out at Summer Strong, and I was like, hey, great, a 3XL skirt. I get a friggin' belt, and I'm golden with this bad boy.
You're like, this is good. I can wear this over my bikini.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, no one needs it. Yeah, that's true, in my thong. Or when I was with the Spurs, and Danny Ferry asked me what I wore under the kilt, and I told him a thong, and he's like, they'd have to change the name of it to Wrong.
Well, Ed, hey, man, fill in the blanks. I know I didn't do you justice. I mean, you're a well-accomplished man. You're a powerful name and powerful image in the strength and conditioning world. Let our listeners know if they don't know who you are, what's up, where have you been, who have you worked with, all that type of stuff.
Oh, man, I actually started lifting as a kid in the mid-'70s as an Olympic lifter until I destroyed my shoulder and joined the Army to get out of Detroit, because that's the only way to get out of Detroit. Went in the Army for 6 years as a Green Beret. Found my way down to Texas to start powerlifting. I actually moved to Corpus Christi, Texas when I got out, just to powerlift for a guy named Rick Gogler, who was a 2-time world champion, and took me to a height that I could never believe in powerlifting back in the my first championship was in 85. So, and I've just been in love with it, and it was kind of a natural progression. Even as a kid, I wanted to be a strength conditioning coach. So moved up to San Antonio to start going to school, play a little rugby, play a little everything else. And man, that's it. I mean, my path has been a wild one. I started the strength coaching program at University of Texas at San Antonio while I was still an undergraduate student, because just because you're a world-class powerlifter, apparently you have to have a college degree to be a strength coach. Shit, no one told me that, They forgot that part. But I went on to Baylor for graduate school, and when I got done with grad school, the NBA lockout had just started. But so I ended up going to doing some private work for Spurs players, and next thing I know, I was an assistant strength coach for the Spurs. So, but I've made my way all over the world. I've coached down in New Zealand. I've coached in Australia. Coached, like you said, with the Franks brothers, with the All Blacks. I went down and worked a training camp, and Ben and I hit it off real well. And a few years later, I called me and asked me if I'd become his personal strength coach. It's kind of all been from there. It's all been the same. I enjoy lifting. That's why I do what I do. I love lifting weights. Been doing it since I was a kid, since I was 12 years old. I'm 54 now. Still bang almost every day in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's funny how some people just avoid that, and how just working out, exercise in general, but how it's unlocked. Like you look at a guy like Ed, just the passion for it's unlocked a whole world of experience that no one's ever going to fucking get off their ass and achieve if they do nothing.
Well, Luke gives me or kind of jokes a little bit. I remember I was probably about 13 years old, and I told my dad, hey, I want to lift weights. And my dad was like, that's stupid. Why would you want to do that? It's just counting to 10 over and over again. That'll never get you anywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. And I remember kind of like a little disheveled. My mom was like, well, we'll get you a membership to like 24-hour fitness. So I'd go in there and just fuck around. And there was like, I just watched people and do whatever they did. And then I didn't really, and then, and then I got to high school, and then I actually started training with, these guys have heard this a million times, a guy named George Zangus. And George owned Marathon Nutrition and invented the super suits and the wraps.
Oh, wow. All right. I still have a pair of his Marathon Gold lines.
Oh, I do too. And so,
I squatted a nice 400 kilos in those bad boys at 265 pounds.
Well, it's funny. If I ever meet anybody that's an old lifter or anything, like whenever I bring it up, they're always like, dude, I used to order supplements out of the back of his magazine.
Yes, out of the back of the magazine, yes.
Yeah. And then you had to call George on the phone, and he would take calls all day long. We'd be down there training, and he would take 100 phone calls from people because you actually had to call him.
Garage phone would ring.
And yeah. So, seriously, like the phone would ring, like, hey, be like on the bar, like, answer the fucking phone. You're like, whoa. They're like, hey, it's George. I'm like, hold on, he's in the middle of the set, and like, hey, and you like would sit over there.
Yeah, I've waited a couple of times on the phone.
Yeah, it's probably us answering it.
Yeah, you probably answered that call.
Yeah, and that's what we did, and so that's when I got into it, and thank God I did, because that's what I actually saw what training was, and it's just it's pretty funny because those guys, were, had to be in his 50s then when I was a young kid, and like that was part of their life. I mean, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It's like, waking up, brushing your teeth, drinking coffee, lifting weights. Like, what else are you going to do?
Go on with your day.
Yeah, and then you go, or, I mean, it's just part of the existence. And I think when you've been doing it for so long, it just becomes part of your routine. And like, what do you mean? And that's why, what's real interesting too, especially in the space now where, with things like CrossFit, where people have come into training and people always ask me, oh, it's a fad. You think it's going to go away? And I'm like, it could, but the one thing that'll never go away is lifting weights. People have barbells, they've been exposed to them, and whatever you want to say about anything, dude, a lot more people are banging weights, and there's a lot more good gym equipment on Craigslist.
Oh, there's a lot more good gym equipment, a lot more. I like the rig system that they came up with, and to be able to put it in a warehouse and go for it. I mean, before, oh yeah, my gym's in a little warehouse. Oh God, no air conditioning? No, man, it's only 100. Shit, you're all right.
Yeah.
Drink another glass of water. Jesus.
Or just get up early and train at 5 a.m. before the sun comes up.
Yeah, well, I'm in Houston. It's still almost 100 fucking degrees. This place is godforsaken right now. Like I've lost a bet and I owe the sun money, and it keeps following me around. But I worked in what we were saying. I mean, I worked in the World League of American Football for a couple of years, the San Antonio Riders. Our head coach was Mike Riley, who's the coach at Nebraska, and Jason Garrett was our number 3 quarterback. He wasn't good enough to be the number 1 quarterback.
They say those who can play, those who can't coach, and that's why he's head coach for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't know how much that says. But, it was we had a little warehouse, like a little garage field house, and that's where we trained at. And I just had the linemen because, the receivers and the backs, they don't want to do anything. So
it's pretty standard.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in rugby too, though. I mean, a lot of the guys that I have it's forwards. We call them tight forwards. The guys that push, the guys that are big. That's the Franks brothers, 6'3", 6'4", 250, 260 pounds, but they run almost 2 miles a game.
I watched a bunch of clips of the Franks brothers in kind of preparation for this today, and the thing that kind of struck me and I laughed a little bit is they play football, or they play rugby similar to an American football player.
Yeah.
So like when I was watching them play and the way they were putting their heads down and accelerating it through, because most guys when they go to get tackled will just go down there or they pitch the ball. Those dudes are trying to literally run through guys.
Yeah, they want to hurt somebody.
Yeah, I mean, which is the mentality of playing American football. And so it's funny because all these rugby guys are always like, oh, this. I'm like, dude, let me tell you, the reason that the Franks brothers fuck people up the way they do is because they're playing the game like they're running downhill at a guy all the time.
Yeah, it's the moment before contact, right? Like,
They put their heads down, they don't flinch, and they like pick a point like 3 feet in front of the guy, and they're like, I'm gonna fucking run through your neck, and that's why they fuck people up.
Yeah, and that's why they're a lot of fun to train too. And keep trying to get Ben to come. I think Ben's going to come out here next year. So we need to go out to California anyway. So we'll come train with you guys.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So we gotta go harass Aaron, and I got a friend of mine that owns a gym called The Yard down in Hermosa Beach.
Ironically, Troll Saban, I met Troll when I was 13 and helped him, and helped him move into the Yard.
Did you really?
When he was training at Gold's Gym, he and Brian ended up buying the Yard, and we had to go help him move gym equipment and with Zangus and shit.
Yeah, small world, because I love Troll, that little short fucker.
He's a tiny fucker. My favorite thing, and this is the joke about Troll, so when Troll goes to shake hands, he does this one, like the Navajo. And the reason being is he has small fucking hands.
He doesn't.
And so I always thought it was like some cool, like fucking like a Native American bro handshake. And then I said it to my brother. My brother's like, "You see how tiny that little motherfucker's hands are?"
He's not putting in your meat pack.
Yeah.
Well, he probably went for it and just missed, and that became his thing.
Oh, he just like thumbs
Ghosted
down.
it.
He just ghosted it. Yeah, no, he's good.
Oh, man. He's a great guy. I met him when I was with the Spurs. We took a few players. I don't know how my boss met him. Oh, through Rick Lewis that had started Winmore. And then York bought Winmore's equipment, and Rick was working. And, I went down there, and shit, I fell in love with that gym. I didn't want to leave.
It's a nice little spot right there on the beach, right on PCH, man. I mean, like, dude,
Yeah.
I always train there. I don't know if he took my jersey down. He probably did at some point. It's like right next to a bunch of sandwich shops.
Sandwich shops, yeah.
And then actually Robert's Liquor, which is right there on the corner, is the first place I ever bought beer.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, I was 14.
And, I was going to say you were of age, right?
I was out of age. And
He was 14 and didn't need an ID.
Actually, I had my brother's fake ID. And my brother played college football, and so he's all of like 6'6", probably about 290 pounds. He's got this neck like this, and I'm over there with this like fucking neck that looks like this. Handing the dude fucking my ideas. I like slid one beer, and the dude looks at me and he's like, "Okay," and I was like,
Okay.
"Hold on." And I go back and I literally grabbed everything I could and brought it up. And the dude was like, puts it in a box. He's like, "How about I carry it up to your car?" I'm like,
Yeah, there you go.
"Yeah, dude." They were waiting because I didn't have a license.
Oh, God.
It was like,
Dude, my first time, it's just making me think of my first fucking time having beer as like a 16, 17-year-old kid. I had that little.
I was 14, so fuck you.
Dude, I get it, but I fucking put like my old man's leather coat on because he rode bikes, and I fucking put a bandana on, glasses, and I rolled up out of my fucking Chevy pickup truck that had straight pipes on it and just walked in and got like this whole fucking shit. 2 handles of Bacardi Limon.
I thought you were going to say Boone's Apple
No,
Farm.
Yeah, exactly.
same thing, dude. I'm just like, look back, like, what an asshole.
Yeah.
But
Buy the trash liquor like everybody else your age.
You're the guy. You're probably like, what's the one thing that an underage kid would never buy?
Yeah. Anything.
Akazimas.
yeah, right.
Yeah, there you go. Anything off the top shelf in the liquor aisle.
Anyways, let's bring it back on track. So, we do some seminars for CrossFit HQ, and it's basically how do you put a sports performance program into a CrossFit gym that's focused on fitness. But we do a lot of work in Australia and New Zealand, and interestingly enough, a lot of these guys are in the private sector of strength and conditioning, and they're saying that a lot of the developmental clubs and like youth leagues are not really into the strength and conditioning, but somehow you've broken through to the All Blacks, and I'm going to guess here, I'm going to go out on a limb that there's no secret rep scheme or percentage. There's not a secret widget. It's just kind of the grit, hard work, bang weights, run fast, and type of approach.
Because
how do they make the connection?
Well, when I went down in 2006 to work training camp with the Crusaders, which would be one of the top level programs that they have over there, they put more All Blacks on the All Blacks and than any other team around back then. And my physical size, my presence in the gym was kind of something that kind of drew guys towards me. And then to watch it is. They don't, until they're like 16, 17 and enter the academy level in rugby, they don't do any strength conditioning. Usually when they get there and they're already 17 years old, that's their first, really introduction to weights. So when Ben brought me down in 2011 after they won World Cup and we started training, I started talking to a couple of the guys that were friends of Ben's that were coaches, and it's kind of progressed from there, is just getting them to understand all the benefits out of the weight training. I mean, being strong will make you a lot of things. It'll make you quick. I always tell them, you want to be fast? I suggest you pick different parents. I can make you quick. Quick is more important than fast anyways.
Right.
Look at right now with the rugby sevens in the Olympics. Carlin Isles, fastest guy in rugby. But he's got no ass behind him. So when he gets to a ruck or he gets to a tackle, he just gets lit up. He can't do anything. So that's great if you get the ball on the outside and you can run and no one wants to, no one catches you. You're great. But if you look at
what was his background?
I think he was a track guy and played a little bit of football.
Yeah,
and the Lions brought him in just to look at him. Just like back in the 80s after the 84 Olympics, Al Davis brought every sprinter he could into, and there was a reason that they were sprinters and they weren't football players because all of them had, hands of stone.
Yeah.
But just looking at that, and I always try to tell these guys, down in New Zealand and some of my friends in Australia too, being strong will make you start and stop quicker. I mean, you can run all you want, but in football, rugby, basketball, any sport, you still have to stop. Just like jumping. I can teach anybody to jump up. It's that shit coming down that hurts. And then trying to teach them that. And I've done most of my stuff with just hard, basic, deliberate work. I mean, I didn't even know there was a phrase called deliberate practice until Ben from Train Heroic sent me some stuff, and it was, that's just how I trained. I didn't know there was a whole big thing behind it. That was just what you did. It wasn't fun. I always say, it's not fun. It's not flash. It's not fancy. It's just work.
Sure.
The flash and the fun shit that comes when you win championships.
Exactly. Yeah.
The first time we went down to Australia to teach any seminars, I had a bunch of kind of a really mixed bag of guys show up. We had about 60 people at the seminar, and we had a bunch of pro rugby league, rugby union guys, but we also had a bunch of Aussie rules dudes.
Yeah, Aussie rules. Smear the queer.
The one thing that fucking blew my mind is so we start training and you kind of like take a look, and first of all, the Aussie rules dudes were absolutely fucking shredded.
Yeah,
it was like these dudes took their shirts off, and I was like, fuck, I think I know anatomy, and I don't know what muscle that is. Muscles I had never seen before. They were absolutely fucking shredded. And the problem was that the rugby league, rugby union guys fucking hated the Aussie rules dudes and were literally talking shit to them the whole time. So I thought that these guys were going to get in a fucking fight. And then we start getting into programming. We're talking about fucking big horsepower, short duration, and these dudes are over there talking about building an aerobic base. And it was, when we got to the programming stuff, I had to basically set everybody down. I was like, hey, motherfuckers, anybody gets in a fight, I'm just going to punch you fucking guys. And seminar was really good, and then I ended up getting hit up by the Aussie rules team to help them go in with their programming. And so they sent me a bunch of their programs, and it was like, well, we ran 10K today in practice, and then we're going to go in and do like 3 sets of 8 on everything.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to these guys, and I'm like, why the fuck? I mean, if this is what you're training in, like, why don't we look at some other time domains over here? And we started talking about rep schemes and this, and basically just kind of looked at like some kind of like, reps, rep maxes, little max effort, a little bit more like kind of lower, more intensity, less running. All of a sudden, dude, the guy like calls me back. He's like, I think I'm going to get fired if I present these to the coaches. I'm like, well, you got a decision. He does it, and then they end up, their injury rate ends up going down. And then, so you see like the, the point which was interesting to me, and what and dude, and I'm sure you know this, is strength conditioning really started in the NFL and really is big here, and people understand it. And when you kind of branch out and you go around the world, you realize how uneducated people are about just basic shit.
Yeah, but they're all scientists.
Yes,
every freaking one of them's a scientist, and it's like, I love it. Great. I got a master's in human performance, man. I sit there and look at, limb lengths for starting positions for rugby, for in the scrum, or for, just the starting position on a tall basketball player when I was in the NBA, trying to do a power clean from the floor. Because when I first got to the Spurs, they didn't do anything like that. The only one around was the Chicago Bulls doing that.
Sure.
When I got to the Spurs, the squat rack was me. I would do a hang clean and hand the weight up to guys.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
They had 2 Smith machines. That's fucking rocking, baby. I didn't even know what those things were for. But I found out that they were really good once we got a squat rack in. They were good to put up at a certain height and then lock them in and put your towel there so you didn't have to bend over
There you go.
to reach down to get your towel. And I could get my belt from there.
I was going to say, I always thought they were good for like hanging shit on like your clothes or a bag or like, I mean, they're like kind of a movable clothing rack.
Yeah.
That's all it was. But I was the squat rack, imagine doing a hang clean and handing the bar up to 7'1" Will Perdue or 6'9" Tim Duncan, 6'10" Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
And then have them look at you like, well, what the fuck do I do with this?
I don't know if I should be impressed or a little depressed, because the fact that, one, that you're having to power clean all this stuff, but how heavy were they really squatting at the fact that you had to power clean all those reps?
So let's just say that Tim Duncan and I love Timmy, got in an argument one day because I was making him do a hang clean to press with weight, and I put more weight on the bar and I walked off, and we were in a small college in San Antonio's weight room, and he yelled at me. Like, God, come on, I got enough weight on the bar, man. There's already 2 plates. Like, yeah, all right, whatever. And I go back to my stuff. I thought he was just, jacking with me like always. I told him, I was like, hey, you need to hurry up, man. We got to get some ab work in, and you got to get up to the floor for basketball practice. No, man, I'm telling you, take some of this weight off. I got 2 plates. And I realized he was serious, so I had to slide a 24-inch box over there so I could step up onto it and almost look him in the eye. Like, dude, you're right. You got 2 plates. I know you got a degree in like, I don't know, psychology or something, but yellow and green, 70 kilos, 154. Yeah, it's no reason. There's no wonder that Shaq bends you over and bones you in the ass every time we play. And I stepped off the box and left. And grabbed my backpack and took a mental health day. Like, come on. No, they don't.
Reality check, baby.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't squatting that much. Will Perdue would squat a lot. Like Steve Kerr, he used to love to lift. He's got a sports scientist up there right now.
Wasn't Carl Malone big in the weights too?
Carl Malone was the reason that there are strength coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the one that came out and said, no, man, it's not hurting my shot. Yeah, it's not doing anything. Because what was his John Thompson, that was the coach at Georgetown for so long.
Yeah.
And I was stretching one of his players that played for us, and he's like, man, you guys really stretch him a lot. I'm like, yeah, well, we just got done lifting. He's lifted before the game because, Jaron probably not going to play that much. And so we did a little lift. I was like, when did you guys lift? Oh, no, man, that weights will throw off your shot. John Wooden didn't allow players to lift either.
Yeah,
as great as he was in that, because I trained a guy, David Greenwood, who ended up was 1979. He was the 2nd pick. He got picked in front of Larry Bird. He just unfortunately blew out his Achilles a few times. So kind of hard to be a power forward with shit Achilles.
Yeah. But when did you start to see the shift in kind of attitude and approach from the sport coaches in the NBA?
probably when I was in, they were starting to get a lot more. Weight rooms are starting to get even better than some of the football weight rooms. So late 90s, early 2000s, still a lot of NFL teams still had a lot of machines in their weight room. And a lot of the NFL or a lot of the NBA guys were going to free weights and everything else. And I loved the Olympic lifts. I mean, I did them growing up. I still do them. But you're only going to get so much out of it. I mean, I had Avery Johnson, who's the head coach now at Alabama. And was Avery going to learn how to do a hang clean? Not a chance in hell. Some of these guys, I mean, David Robinson was so banged up and beat up, he couldn't reach down and grab the bar off the ground. I had to pick it up to him. So they weren't going to really get a great benefit out of it, but they would get a benefit out of some of the other stuff that I did with them, whether it was a trap bar deadlift or dumbbell circuits and throwing medicine balls for their explosion work. And I'm still a huge proponent of med balls. I mean, after Ben and Owen, as big and strong as those guys are, after we get done weight training, that's the one thing they do. They go out, they have to throw anywhere from 60 to 100 med ball throws. Scoop toss backwards, scoop toss forward. I come up with a circuit for conditioning with a boxer that I trained. James Leha was a former world champion, fought Azuma Nelson in that coat hanger size with the 130-pound class.
Sure.
Why anyone could possibly want to weigh 130 pounds?
Yeah, but isn't that watching, to me, it's, and I'm a boxing fan, it's one of my favorite things to watch because you hit each other 1,000 times, but nobody ever gets knocked out.
Nobody ever gets knocked out.
Dude, they literally throw bombs and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't see any blood. Nobody's believing.
Yeah, well, I even changed that with James because, they always did that long, slow distance crap.
Yeah, the road work. I mean,
yeah, and he would see the guys out at the football or at the like a high school football stadium. Some of the kids that I trained, and then the Spurs players would always show up out there. And it was like, yeah, James. He was like, hey, you guys need to do this. Jerry Rice's workout. Like, James, every fucking football player in America does 16 110s. I'm like, Jerry Rice doesn't do 16 110s to start with. But that's the normal conditioning test. I'm like, what? We talked for a while. And then after my Spurs season was done, James asked me to come train him. So I introduced him to 400s and 200s at a certain time. This is how fast you're going to run it. This is how much you're going to rest. Then I introduced him to a wall and a 4-kilo med ball. And stuff that I gotten from Al Vermeil, stuff that I came up just – remember, I said I love doing this. I've been doing it my whole life. I don't understand why half of the stuff that I do works. It just does. I broke down and I came up with 10 different exercises, 10 reps each off of the wall. Scoop toss backwards off the wall. He'd hit it as hard as he could. I'd bounce pass it back to him. He'd go again, over the shoulder, from the side, front. So I came up with all these things and we threw 200 throws. That night, I said I'm from Detroit. I'm used to being the only white guy places. I walked into the gym. It's, down in downtown San Antonio. And the old guy, Joe Souza, who was Arturo Gotti's cut man and De La Hoya's cut man, he ran the gym. And he come out of that office cussing and screaming at me. What the do you do with it? James is up in the ring, can't even pick his hands up. I'm like, James, I expected you to throw with your midsection a hell of a lot more than just your arms, but it'll get better. And, long story short, a couple of weeks later, the chief second asked me, hey, did you guys stop all that medicine ball shit? I'm like, no, actually we threw 400 times today. Why? He goes, because I think James just broke my ribs with the big old belt pad on.
Yeah.
And the chief second looks, he goes, all right, I understand what you mean now.
Yeah, keep doing it.
I learned all that med ball stuff via Charlie Francis.
Okay.
And then, those are all the med ball circuits that we did in the track and the speed stuff when I was early in my NFL career. And then I trained out at Athletes Performance. And I remember Verstegen started, hey, we're going to do all this med ball shit. And I was like, I think I've seen this all, the Charlie Francis stuff. And then we were out at Westside Barbell. Louis is a buddy of ours, and went out there. And all of a sudden I see Louis' track girl doing it. And I kind of laughed. I was like, oh, you're using, dead to right's the same one.
Yeah.
Louis kind of winked at me and he's like, you're the only person that would know that. I'm like, well, I'm the only person old enough here to know who Charlie Francis is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, shit, if you talk to Al Vermeil, he swears to God Vern Gambetta stole everything from him. You talk to Vern Gambetta, he swears to God Al Vermeil stole everything from him. No different than Joe DeFranco and Martin Rooney.
Yeah.
You know, when they both worked for Bill Parisi, you know, you swear to God they y'all know he stole that from me. No, he stole it. I'm like, guys, it's a fucking med ball. Track coaches have been keeping med balls alive for
Well, that's
the 70s.
Yeah,
When somehow the old leather med ball fell out of favor, and then the guy started making the Dynamax balls.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, it's the greatest thing since Wonder Bread came out. I'm like, really? Fuck, I've been throwing med balls for a long time.
No, we started getting the not the Dynamax, but the ones that are real hard that you can actually use as off a wall, and the idea they bounce in the reactive.
Yep.
And for me, one of the the scouting report on me when I played was I always had fast hands, and that came from fighting and boxing as a kid, and speed bag and all that. And then when I got and then also playing offensive line, cutting a guy off on the ring and all the jump rope and all this, just basic footwork stuff I did was, you basically learn how to, square up on a guy, but also play 2/3 and then how to cut him off in the ring. That's all the stuff I learned. And then I go play football and I'm like, wait a minute. So the quarterback's at 5 to 7 yards and you're right there and I got to stay between you. I'm like, dude, this is easy. But all the reactive stuff, like to be able to stay in your stance with your hands on a ball and then be able to set back and fire and then be able to catch, and that actual reactive force, was I think what helped me develop a lot of my big punch and a lot of those things, and actually the med ball things were some of the by far the most kind of really coolest part, like really just helped me develop. And I remember Juan Castillo, who was my offensive line coach, from Corpus Christi.
Yeah, he's from Corpus. Yeah, he coached at A&I for a long time.
Yeah, I think he might be the head coach down there again.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
And I remember Juan asking me, hey, can I come film all this shit? And so he filmed all that, and then he used to go around and show it as like offensive line drills. And I'm like, hey, motherfucker, you're taking all my work and fucking trying to pass up. Put it work.
He's buying me a fucking steak.
He's like, this shit works. I'm like, yeah, it fucking does. Because it's the ability to throw and then the reactive force to catch it.
Yep.
What people don't think about, because in an offensive line, as that guy comes into you, that ability to accelerate your hands.
Yeah, it's like guys talking about landing on the jump.
Yeah, you can produce all the force you want, but boy, you better be able to absorb, stabilize, and produce it back in another direction.
Well, the beauty of the small balls, like the hard balls, is you are forced to recover into a good position and reduce that force.
Yes.
What we're seeing with the Dynamax balls, it dies.
Yeah.
Flat.
Yeah.
Second deal I'm seeing with the Dynamax is people think 12 pounds is too heavy. So then they just want to hit the 20s and the 30s, and what they're missing is
too light.
The speed
that
you're talking about.
Well, that's the analogy, and I know I've told you guys 100 times. It's in super training where the story about they were training the shot putters, and Verkhoshansky found that 200 kilos was like the perfect bench press for their shot putters, because when they pushed them up to like 230 and they went up to 500 pounds, the speed at which they were moving the weight slowed down and they threw less. So they figured out that 440 and the ability to move at a certain time, which is historic acceleration,
right,
was more beneficial. And I found the same shit. I'm like, dude, it's better for me to throw a lighter ball as fast as I can than it is to throw a heavier ball and reduce my speed.
Yeah, I have all kinds of different rubber med balls, sand balls that dive so we could throw them outside and do scoop toss and not have to chase them down the street or anything else. A few Dynamax balls, but I like Tex is just saying, I like the lighter balls. I don't use the heavy ones all the time. Heavy ones are fun for for certain things, but shit, I want something heavy. I got sandbags. But everybody's always back in when I first started strength coaching, there were powerlifting guys, Olympic lifting guys, and the plyo guys. And I was told by the god of strength coaches, and I love him, but Mike Stone, that you could only be one of those three. You weren't supposed to be all of them. And I was sitting back at just finishing college, haven't even taken my CSCS test yet. And I'm like, well, shit, I'm screwed, because I do Olympic lifting, powerlifting, some old school bodybuilding that I grew up with, because if I'm trying to put some size on a basketball player, 3 sets of 5 hang cleans sure as hell isn't going to put a whole lot of size on them.
Yeah, it's not the fastest.
Dude, I've told these fuckers forever, I'm like, if you want to be able to know how to put weight on somebody, you better know some bodybuilding.
Yeah. You better go talk to Louis Freitas down there at the yard.
Yeah. I mean, dude,
Matt Mendenhall taught me a ton, and that was Joe Weider's blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy in the 80s and early 90s. He taught me a lot when I was trained with him in San Antonio for a while. You got to be able to put some meat on, some quality meat. And I talked to, a group of guys, and they were good guys, and they're learning Rugby Renegade out of London. And I was explaining, how important a barbell row was for my rugby props because of the body position that they have to push in and scrum in, because the break in the T-spine, which would be, just right there at the rib cage, that's deadly in a scrum. And, the ball will get turned over, or the hooker's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get hurt if the whole thing collapses. And these guys are trying to do a scrum under the three guys in the front row, probably about 2,500 pounds of force. Those three spines are absorbing that on a 4 to 6 second hold, and then a drive, and then a hold again. So, I like the barbell row. I used it when I powerlifted. And I deadlift 2 weeks, I barbell row 2 weeks, deadlift 2 weeks, barbell row for 2 weeks. And the guys had no clue in hell what the hell I was talking about with a barbell row. Oh, well, dumbbells. I'm like, no, there's something different about a barbell row. You can do it. And they always call it pendule rows, but
no.
I remember the bar being on the floor because it was too damn heavy.
No,
we
were always taught when you row that the bar always starts on the floor and finishes on the floor.
And
yes. When you pull it, you have to try to
hold
pause.
It. Yeah. One. Yep.
The age-old deadlifted up in the bodybuilder thing, that was actually we called those Yates rows. And then there was a barbell row. I think what people do is they look for certain things and then they call them Penlay, it's a Penlay row. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's how we always did barbell rows. So
that's just how a row is done, because you're trying to use as much weight as you could.
Yeah.
But the idea, and I make all the kids everybody I train, I assign a tempo to a lot of lifts. Just as Ben and Owen, when they were doing these squats that almost looked like they were 90 degrees. Well, it's as far look, you're gonna go ahead and pause squat. So I'm gonna give you a tempo to go down at. I'm gonna give you a tempo to hold, and I'll give you a tempo to come up at. Oh, they hated me with a passion. But
no.
I was like, look, you don't have to be an Olympic lifter or something like that. I mean, we're gonna get down low, but there's benefits to it. Achilles tendon flexibility, knee flexibility, the front part of your ankle. Everybody thinks, oh, my hips are tight, I can't get down. And you look at them and they got their hands all the way out on the bar. It's like, can't get your hands in any closer than that. Maybe it's your back that's tight. You start loosening up their back, all of a sudden they can get down in the hole. There's benefits to it. You're not supposed to load everything you can up in the world and do that. That's for powerlifters to barely break, parallel. That's where we're supposed to go. So, and
hopefully.
Hopefully.
It depends on your federation.
I just say it depends on the federation. If you walk the bar back, if you don't, I have a real thorn in my side with that one.
I remember we started doing we went out to Westside and I started really exploring a lot of the kind of the dynamic and the band and the chains, and so we ended up getting a monolift. And I remember when I called George, or actually George called me kind of late. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh man, we just trained today," and I talked to him a little bit, and the silence on the phone was fucking deafening when I told him that we had a mono. And he was literally like, I'm like, hello? Hello? He's like, you gotta be fucking shitting me. And he's like, and I told him, I'm like, no, it's great because we can have different lifters train together and we can all lift at the same bar, not like the old days when we used to have to fucking horse it up on different hooks. And he's like, he goes, and what was his comment? If you don't walk it out, it doesn't count.
Don't walk it out and don't walk it back. It doesn't count. Nope.
Yeah. So that was his big deal.
Yeah. Well, it takes some gear off. I see more of these. Even the Olympic lifters now have knee wraps on that look like powerlifting knee wraps, powerlifting belts on. I'm still over there. I got my powerlifting belt, but as I stop squatting heavy, I don't go more than 200 kilos anymore. I just use an old leather belt from forever ago, just enough to hold my T-shirt down. Since fucking Aaron keeps giving me them the long ass T-shirts between him and Sorinex, my closet full of T-shirts. As I go look through and it's like, oh yeah, I got to find a shirt to wear. My wife looks, she goes, do you not have a shirt that doesn't say a team that you worked for, or a T-shirt from Sorinex, or hammer strength or here or there. I'm like,
No.
You're like, I haven't bought a T-shirt in years. That's like us. Like every
God, no.
It's like free T-shirts. People are like, I'm like, you bought a T-shirt? I can't even think the last time.
How do you do that?
Well, I actually asked Luke now. I'm like, hey, can you get some of those shirts without anything on them? Because I just want to. I don't even want anybody's fucking logos.
Yeah. I bought one because I went to Rogue America.
Rogue American Apparel.
Austin.
Yeah, they built a store in Austin now.
Oh,
I went up there and talked to Wes for a while and hung out and bought a shirt there. I'm like, wow, shit, T-shirts are expensive. Shit, I'm going back to
Dude, one of our guys lives out there, and he sent us a bunch of T-shirts, and so of course they like tossed me the XX, and I put it on, and I was like, I don't know what their definition of XX is, but this ain't my XX. I'm like, do you have like a 7X? Because this thing couldn't fit my fucking wife. So I met Wes a couple years ago at the CrossFit Games, and he's got a pretty cool collection of cars.
Oh yeah, he does.
Yeah,
you see the gym he's building?
No.
So on his property, he's got the warehouse, the store. He went and got 3 shipping containers. Some university was going out, was buying new stuff, so he's got a Sornex rack, a whole bunch of dumbbells, and some other stuff. And he put the shipping containers in a U, and he's going to put mats down in the middle of it. So you have outside and inside. He's going to put a sunshade thing over it.
Oh shit! Where does he live on that property, or he just bought the property?
I think he just bought the property. I didn't see anywhere where he was living on it or anything. He had his Maserati in there and some other stuff.
I know he's got a big black Chevelle, and I think he has a Blazer and some things. So yeah, I remember we started rapping about cars because I'm into fucking old piece of shit cars too. So he was pretty funny. I'm more into the old diesels, but he's into a little bit more flashy stuff. But I appreciate anybody that's into old pieces of shit, piece of iron.
Oh yeah. I couldn't work on shit, so I could blow stuff up.
Me too.
That was my whole job. That was my whole job skill in the military. It was like, oh yeah, I started out as an MP, and then I went over to special forces when I made a certain rank, and I could test to go over, and it was, well, you were an engineer in the Army. I'm like, yeah, there might be a different definition of engineer when it comes to. I was a de-engineer. I fucking de-engineered stuff. And that's why I always, I laugh. People are like, oh yeah, well you push Jeeps and you push cars, and we go back to the '95 when I was first getting into strength coaching. That was unheard of. I talked a little thing about pushing cars and some other stuff, and I got ridiculed. A year later in ESPN magazine, I'm looking at it, and shit, 2 of the coaches that ridiculed me are in ESPN magazine because they're in big programs and they're pushing trucks.
Oh.
They're doing this other stuff they're like, well, how'd you come up with that? I'm like, out of necessity, we really didn't have a weight room. I'm in the middle of nowhere in Germany on a nuclear weapons site. I got some deuce and a halves and a couple of Jeeps, and I'd pay the guys after I do a run. I'd pay somebody to hang out at the bottom of the hill, and I'd push a Jeep up the hill because I didn't have anything else to do. Sandbag. Oh yeah, we didn't have any weights. Oh, look at that! I can make a sandbag. My duffel bag's heavy. Put some sand in it, and that's what I did. And that's why I still have it at the gym. I mean, friends with Randy Strawson from Iron Mind, have been for a long time, and got a few of his sandbags and some other stuff. Or I'm real big into neck work. Still do neck bridges. Still do all the stuff from wrestling when I wrestled in high school. And then I got bored one day. I'd had my sled outside. The kids were pushing a sled. So I decided I was going to do some supersets of neck with them. So I hooked the neck harness from Iron Mind to the sled, and I walked backwards and frontwards with the sled attached.
Oh shit!
They're like, "What
That's
the hell?"
my jam. I think I can crush that one.
We still, I still have a neck strap that we use. We stepped up our game. We got the Spud strap, but neck stuff is totally underrepresented, and most people don't do it.
How come strength coaches don't do it anymore?
It's not sexy.
Okay.
I've come to the conclusion that somewhere in time, sexy became what it was all about. Let's make everything sexy and cool, and that you got to trick people into it. And when I went to Philly, Mike Wolf and Tom Canady, who were 2 Penn State guys, were our strength coaches. And I remember I walked in, it was all fucking hammer strength because they were a hit team. And I remember, like, after I get done lifting weights, I'd be like, hey, can I do something else? Because that 12 minutes didn't really feel like it did much for me. And so then we ended up hanging out, and they ended up devising a bunch of training stuff. But that was always manual resistance neck, towel on the head, and, trying to get your neck so pumped up that I wanted to look like a bullfrog. Yeah. And I remember, like, asking him, and I think the analogy really is that people really want to, I mean, sexy is what sells. We do this and this, and talk about all this stuff, and you're like, dude, all you're doing is giving fancy names to a bunch of fucking really, really old-time basic things. And it's like, the program that probably Bill Starr talked about is probably still just as applicable today as it was back then.
Yeah, because I still use 5 sets of 5. I still use 5 sets of 3.
Yeah, so do we.
We were talking about, like, percentage. I don't really even use percentages.
Neither do I.
I'm like, look, I expect you. I got a football player, I got a rugby player, I got a basketball player. I'm going to tell them, hey, we got to go 80% today. But coach just ran the shit out of them, and 80% is not happening. Or they're feeling pretty strong. And what's 80% based on anyways?
Exactly.
They're not a weightlifter, so you don't really have a max. You had a technique max.
Yeah.
And that was 10 weeks ago, and we're getting stronger. So that max at 80% might not really – it might only be 60%. So now I'm doing you a disservice there. So I expect you to push hard your 5 reps. If you make 5 reps and it was easy, bump it up. If you make 5 reps and it's like, no, that's pretty good right there, that's fine. Or take some weight off the bar. Not a big deal. But, Ben Franks always makes fun of me. And when he hears the podcast, I'll give him some rip shit right now. Push shit for, 5 sets of 5, that's all, Ed. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Once in a while we'll do some 8s, and I made Owen do some 8s this off season. He had to do some 8s in the squad, old throwers thing with 6 sets of 8, and by your 4th set of 8 should be your hardest set of 8, and then 5th set you either go up or stay there, and then 6th set you come down. Just trying to get some good hard 8s out of them. That'll teach you how to be mentally strong as well.
That's pretty accurate. I mean, I can usually wrap my head around like a triple, a 4, even a 5, and you start talking like anything outside of 5, and you get underneath there, and you're like, how many reps?
Oh yeah, how many reps?
All of a sudden, you start lying to yourself because I can get to 5, and then for some reason I black out from 6 to 7, and I'm like, I don't even know where I'm at. I'm like, somebody else count for me because I'll be like, I think I just counted 10 twice. All right.
Oh, I can't.
When I'm a 7, I'm in.
Yeah, I can't count to 8 anyway, so I can barely get to 5. But Ben is really he really helped me a lot. That's what we were talking about, with the rugby stuff. I mean, he's really helped me a lot getting around other people, introducing me to people, seeing his progress. Seeing his progress is what got Owen to start training with me, because Owen still trained with a guy that's a really good guy that trained him originally, but was just beating him up because he was training him like an Olympic lifter.
Mm-hmm.
These guys have a 8-week off season. That's it. They play for 10 months.
Did they really?
Shit.
They play for 10 months. So if you're not playing, you're
How
playing.
many games do they play?
They play probably, I think, because Ben went from the Hurricanes to the All Blacks. They won World Cup and then went right to London Irish. He played 43 games
Jeez.
before he tore his bicep. And but they'll play 20+ games a year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 25 games. Yeah, a couple of weeks off here, a couple of week break there. That's it. Like All Blacks, the Super 15 season just ended last weekend, and they're already getting ready for Rugby Championship, which is against Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Argentina. Argentina's become a powerhouse in rugby, both in 7s and in 15s.
Well, that's because they had our seminar there.
That's true. Well, we did have a bunch of Argentinian guys come that were rugby guys.
Yeah.
And what was interesting too is they have this weird American football culture.
Yeah.
Like it was.
Do they?
Yeah. They have all
they're
these
in Brazil.
Yeah, they're in Brazil. They have all these. I don't know how it happened, but they got a bunch of like American ex-coaches to go down there, like kind of expat deal, and go and they started basically starting American football.
Yeah, and it's government funded as well. So like they're guaranteed certain salary for a certain number of seasons, and they.
Oh wow!
So I know when that thing went down, because that was like 2 years ago. The guy hit us up to come down there.
Yeah, and we went to Argentina, and like all of a sudden I'm like expecting soccer, rugby, and all these dudes are fucking American football players, and I'm like,
Wait a
You
minute.
mean like with pads and shit?
Ah, that makes sense. I got a guy that plays over in England, plays rugby over there, and he's Argentinian. He got 5 caps for Argentina. He's a big prop forward, and he was asking me a bunch of stuff about American football. You think I could I'm like, that's a hard transition. Being a position like a forward position, because Ben's about the size of Ben and Owen are both probably about the size of a tight end.
Yeah.
A little shorter, 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
So maybe a linebacker got good, good agility, good speed, but don't have exactly what an NFL, the type is.
Yeah, those guys would be they would be a little on the small side for tight ends, and they're probably not fast enough to be an outside backer.
Be an outside backer, yeah.
I mean, because 260 inside, I mean, normally that would be like an inside linebacker. I mean, outside guys, dude, those dudes are so fast.
Yeah.
I remember literally pulling and trying to chase these dudes and like being like, really? Like 265, like 6'4", 265, and runs like, I don't know, a 4.4.
Yeah.
And I'm out there trying to get fucking dude on the corner, and I'm like, I remember coming back and like looking at him, being like, dude, come on, like,
this ain't gonna work.
Take a better fucking angle. I'm like, dude, I can
take a better angle.
Yeah, like that was my thing. I'm like, you could give me like a 2-second lead, and I'm running from the sideline. I wouldn't be able to catch this motherfucker.
Yeah. Somebody will hook the damn parachute from me. Who the hell hooked the parachute out there?
God, dude, I remember we played at Old Dallas Stadium, and it had such a crown, like a massive crown, that I remember we were on one hash, and I had to like pull to the other side, and I remember running uphill, and as I was running, I was like, I'm so fucking tired, my legs. And I was trying to chase this dude, and I was literally chasing him uphill, and I remember like thinking to myself, I can't believe I'm running up fucking hill.
Yeah.
And like the people, I was like, dude, they're like, how did you get him? Like, I was chasing him uphill, and they were like, uphill? What the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, we're on the field. They were like, that's really pushing it. I'm like, I'm going with it, dude.
I'm taking that one. That's mine.
I was like, but if you can get me going the other way where I get to run downhill, I will be way faster.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm always really good fast going downhill. Usually on my side rolling like a can of beans. But that's what happens when you're 5 foot almost 10 and 280.
Yeah, that's 3XL stout.
No, that's a good size.
I thought it was a good size. It's the same thing for, everybody. When I was at the Spurs, I got shit for it. But I still wear rugby shorts because Ben and Owen have supplied me with rugby shorts for forever. It's like I got rid of all my basketball shorts. I don't need anything that touches my knees. I'm fucking 5'10". I don't need to look any shorter.
Yeah, you need the illusions in the right direction, right?
Exactly. It's like I'm not pulling my socks all the way up either.
What about those old school NBA shorts?
Oh
Yeah, I could rock those things. But the only time I showed up for the very first practice in '99, I showed up with a pair of Champion shorts on, mid thigh, like they're shorts. And David Robinson, loved the guy, Mr. Religious, went by singing the short song to me. Somebody else learned Hot Legs. Like, oh, that's it. I go and I get my gear from the equipment manager. Yes, I need XX shorts. Yeah, I got some ass on me. No, I don't need XX plus 6 inches. Okay? I'm not one of the players. Shorts do not need to be below my freaking knee. I put them on, and David ran past by me again. He goes, "Yo, Big Ed." I'm like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "And you better put Avery's pants back in his locker. He's going to be mad." Oh, that's it. I just dropped this stuff right there. I went walking across in my compression shorts. Give me my damn shorts back. Find me some shorts. So I think Brandon Lilly made a good one at Summer Strong. He's like, "Yeah, you want to start increasing leg strength, everything up. Take 6 inches off the shorts that you're wearing. You start figuring out just what your legs look like."
Yeah.
That's probably pretty accurate.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, you start training your underwear. I mean, we could do it here. It may be weird, but
you would actually finally put underwear on instead of the naked.
just hang.
Is he still wearing the old school jock?
No, dude. I remember I started when I was in the NFL. I lived down here in Newport Beach, and I used to drive to Athletes Performance way out in Carson, which is realistically it's only about 23, 24 miles, but in LA traffic that could be fucking
2 hours.
Yeah, I mean it could be like I'm like fuck. And so I started training up at this little CrossFit gym, like that was like, literally a mile from my house because they had bumper plates, and I go in there and bang. And I was laughing because all those dudes were in there wearing like board shorts and no underwear. And I remember being like, how small is your fucking equipment that you can basically work out in board shorts and no underwear? And then I realized none of these dudes' legs touched. And I was like, that's what it is. I was like, your legs.
You've got thigh gap.
I was like, yeah, you have thigh gap. I'm like, that makes total sense. And I was like,
yeah, you in the anorexic swimsuit.
I was like, my legs have probably since birth. I mean, I have a little boy. We just had a little boy 5 months ago, and his legs. I mean, dude, he's thick. Like
he's got that 3XL stout look
dude,
to him.
He's looking nice. It's pretty funny. People are like, dude, this baby's pretty stout. I'm like, look at those thighs. He's got big thighs.
Exactly. Yeah,
and,
gotta get to college somehow.
Oh, dude, I joke because my daughters, who were actually pretty stout little babies, are now like little bean poles like this. And I'm like, I asked my wife, I'm like, where did this come from? Why are they so skinny? I'm like, hey, we got to work on fattening this baby up. So he's pretty fat. Yeah, his whole life, his legs are gonna be stuck together.
Oh man.
So, Ed, I was fortunate enough to hear you speak at Summer Strong, and they kind of put you in that that block.
Yeah.
And you gave a pretty motivational and inspiring story. You mind sharing kind of your journey or perspective gain?
Whoa. Yeah, close the door, baby. Well, 2 years ago, apparently you're still supposed to watch your diet when you retire from doing some stuff, and genetics plays a large part, but sleep apnea was the biggest culprit. I ended up having a few heart attacks. I had 3 heart attacks in the Dallas airport, walking through the airport, just trying to get to my gate, to a point where I was like, man, I really need to get in better shape, because there's no way in hell I was having a heart attack. I'm 52. I'm not that old. And yeah, I had one late at night, looked it up on Google while I sent my wife over across the street to get a Coke, because, I just had indigestion. And we finally ended up going to the hospital, where I had a 100% blockage in an artery behind my heart. My widowmaker was blocked at 96%. And the doctors were still trying to figure out how I was living. They talked to me about it, and I just had my 2-year checkup with my heart doctor today, and clean bill of health, looking good, everything else. But being strong, being able to grind through, the old super squat 20 squats, or sets of 8, sets of heavy, sets of 5, or just one set after another, and that kind of mentality is what kept me alive. According to the doctor, 96% of the people that suffer the blockages that I do, they lay down at night and go to sleep, and they just don't wake up. That's it. The widowmaker, once it blocks, that's it. It controls 3 arteries that are feeding your left ventricle, that are giving it its supply to be able to pump correctly. My blood volume wasn't pumping out of my heart. I would 100% would come down from the atrium into the ventricle, and only 40% would get pumped out, and it would stay getting bigger, and then have a real hard contraction, push it all out, and then it would start a vicious cycle again, till my heart just had enough. It stopped twice on the way to the hospital. I started it by kind of feeling like it beats a little weird, and just kind of tapping on it. When I finally got there.
What's that called? Where basically the volume, your heart works kind of interesting in that, like, it pumps blood in, and then it pumps out, but a little bit's left, and then all of a sudden when that gets mounted, there's actually a name for that, and I can't remember
Yeah, they were looking at the volume of the stroke volume and some other stuff, but the left ventricle it was just suffocating.
So basically you had to exercise to drive blood out of your heart.
I had to exactly. So I could do, because the day that I had the heart attack, I did 600 for sets of 5 in a squat. I was doing loading with a 300-pound sandbag, trying to learn how to pick it up correctly, because I have a couple of goals with some of the manhood stones over in Scotland. And so I was learning how to round my back for the first time in my life. And so I did all that, and my wife went to bed early, and I decided to stay up, and I leaned across the couch, and all of a sudden it felt like a rhino on my chest.
Oh, man.
And like I said, I just told her that maybe I just have indigestion. I went and took a cold shower. She went across the street to the store to get a Coke for me. So so I could, I needed to get my indigestion. That's all.
Well,
The doctor said I should have died the Monday I was coming back from, on the flight from Dallas. I should have died there. I should have died the next 2 days later when I had a small heart attack at USA Rugby's practice out in the heat. And I damn sure should have died under 600-pound squat. But no dumbass, and that's exactly what he told me, no dumbass gets in a car, doesn't call an ambulance, and drives himself to the hospital. I'm like, I wasn't driving. My wife was driving. I was telling her to hurry and don't stop for that light because I don't think I'm going to make it. And
do you think the sleep apnea was a major contributor, or do you think that was a side effect?
Nah, sleep apnea was a major contributor.
Wow.
That's the major contributor. I had sleep apnea so bad the Spurs players used to laugh and joke that I wasn't allowed to stay on the same floor as them.
Because you would wake up like
I would wake them up snoring.
Wow.
So loud that, because NBA, they're spoiled. You NFL guys, you have to have roommates. NBA players, I didn't have to have a roommate, even as a low-down assistant. And but I wasn't allowed on the floor. My wife hated me until I finally got my CPAP. But the damage had already been done.
Yeah.
Couldn't undo it, or I wasn't doing enough, like walking cardio stuff. Going to the old adage, especially with throwing, mass moves mass. I got to be heavy so I could throw this 56-pound weight. And then when I went to masters at the 42-pound weight, I still, oh no, shit, I don't need to do that. I can still do all this. I squat heavy. I don't need to do anything.
Yeah. No, the reason I asked the sleep apnea is one of our good friends, a guy named Dr. Tom Ankledon out in Arizona. He owns a place called Human Performance Specialists. And so Tom's really, really good at basically evaluating different technologies and, anything to health and performance. And I remember he called me and was like, like just asking a little bit and, like, hey, do sleep apnea and any stuff? And I was like, when we went through the NFL, they would periodically, like every couple of years, give us a sleep study. Like we would go to the hotel and they never told me I had anything. And then I remember Tom being like, I started prescribing different CPAPs to different clients that had problems. And he goes, I just got one for myself. And he goes, I sleep actually really well with it. So he ended up prescribing me one. And I sleep with it, and it's just basically the ResMed one that kind of real small fits in your nose. Yeah. And it's, the nights I don't knock it off, I wake up and I'm like, this morning, like I wore it last night, and I woke up this morning at like 4:45. Like and we have a 4-month-old, so my sleep has been absolutely fucking terrible for 4 or 5 months. I literally woke right up and I was like alert, like where the fuck am I?
Oh yeah.
And and my wife was like, did you hear the baby cry? And I'm like, obviously not. She's like, well, I did. Fuck you.
I did. Fuck you.
Yeah, my poor wife. She like hears like a fucking mouse talking on 3 streets over. She's like, I'm like, oh god. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that ResMed and that CPAP.
CPAP.
Fucking game changer. And I don't even have sleep apnea, but for something, I think driving the air in and the moisture, like to me, it's one of those things where if like, even if you didn't have it, like that has improved the quality of my sleep tremendously. Yep. So yeah,
it was quality of your sleep, quality of your recovery, quality of your life. I mean, Jeff Nichols talks about it all the time. I met him through Bert and Sornex, and he's come here, and I actually get to talk to him because his fiance sells a compression gear. I got some compression tights from her for speaking at Summer Strong, and they were amazing. So I'm going to try to get some compression socks for myself from flying and everything else.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I blew out, part of the heart problem was I blew out my Achilles and had a shitty doctor in San Antonio that ignored the infections in my leg. That's why Brandon Lilly and I get along so well. Derek Woodseck, he's had some issues with his. I had 9 surgeries in 2 months to clean out the infection and ended up losing the Achilles tendon. I have 20% of Achilles tendon left attached, 1 ankle ligament gone. The big toe tendon that they use for the graft, that's gone.
Oh, Jesus.
So that's what I walk around with. Cap is smaller. Yeah, but I can still squat. I run like a fat kid chasing a cookie uphill. But Good God. You see me running, you're looking like, hey, somebody fucking roll out a ding dong in front of this guy?
You know what? I know Brandon. I met Brandon years ago at Westside, and so I kind of always kind of keep an eye, and I think it pops up in my feed, and the amount of fucking battle he's had with that infection.
Yes.
Like all of a sudden, like, and you know what? Like I almost like want to be like, dude, just go fucking chill out, dude. Like, I mean, like
he still wants to squat in his big contest coming.
I know, and like he just went in, I think, for like what his 12th fucking surgery. Like the infection, and you know this, dude. The infection is present always, and really where it rears its ugly head is when all of a sudden you get beat down and you fuck with your nervous system, and all of a sudden you mess up your immune system, and also you damage it, whether it's overtraining, lifting, doing whatever the fuck you do. All of a sudden immune function goes down and it rears its ugly head.
And it goes to arthritic joints. That's where it likes to get to. The joint with some arthritis.
Especially if there is infection that's been in that area before, it will fucking spark. And like with Brandon, I'm like, dude, just fucking go chill out, dude. Like drink some water, hang out, listen to some calming music, do something. Like he's in there and he's like, oh, I just had surgery 3 days ago and I'm under 600. I'm like, dude, you're going to lose your fucking leg. I mean, I played with a couple guys.
Yeah, you played with guys that are like that back in that era.
Dude, but I knew guys that had ACLs done. There were 2 guys I know. One of them, Ben Lynch, one of them was my college buddies. He had his ACL done, and he and another guy had their ACLs done the exact same day, and both of them got staffed from that fucking hospital. And it ended up ending both of those dudes' careers. And I asked Ben, I'm like, what is it? He's like, honestly, man, he goes, I got to be really, really smart. And he goes, because if I get fucking fatigued or I train too hard, all of a sudden, like that area of my body gets real warm. And he goes, and I just chill the fuck out. And it goes away. He goes, it's almost like like a fucking blinking light. He goes, dude, he goes, that shit never leaves your body once you get it. And he goes, you got to fucking look out. You got
to be smart.
Yeah, Charles Bentley, same thing. I mean, there's numerous guys that are NFL players. I mean, fuck Lawrence Tynes, who's the kicker for New York Giants, same thing. Staph infection, MRSA from, ACL surgery. I mean, dude, that shit is no fucking joke. And I've seen it end guys' career. So every time I see Brandon, and it's literally like every 3 or 4 months, he has to go back in and get it cleaned out and this. And, this doctor said this. I'm like, fuck it. I mean, dude, I mean, shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, my wife's a microbiologist. She was arguing with the PA. He's like, no, it's just a stitch abscess. It's not infected. 2 weeks later, it blew up like John Belushi in Animal House. I mean, everywhere, all over the place. Holding it in with a dish towel. Went back in. They finally. Idiot in San Antonio did a couple of surgeries, and then when I got to Houston, the ankle side started blowing up. And I actually had look like a candle wick sticking out of my ankle, which was the tendon graft. And I showed up at the Texas Orthopedic Hospital here, which were phenomenal guys. And the guy was like, well, he came out of the operating room, told my wife, well, we were able to save his leg so far. And that's pretty much all she heard. They did a bunch of surgeries, did a lot of great stuff, but they're not going to go put a cadaver Achilles in there. Not going to take that chance. And so I have to, kind of deal with what it is. And that was part of the thing so all of that, 5 months of a PICC line in my arm, giving myself IV antibiotics, all of that kind of wreaked havoc on the heart. Every time you go under for surgery, it puts pressure on the heart. Yeah. And, it just beat me up too much. And there was no way to recover from it. High cholesterol, not paying attention to, eat, sometimes eating good, but, sometimes the bad stuff, or getting lazy when it gets hot outside and just kind of grabbing whatever you can. Cause you're just beat up and tired and you didn't feel like getting up. So I'm going to hit the Mexican food truck and, I don't eat just, maybe somebody else gets away with eating 2 or 3 tacos, but that's not enough. I got to have 12.
No, tacos in the dozens.
I was going to say you're talking to the taco assassin over here. And I've made this comment numerous times. Probably the most impressive volume eater I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I've been around some big fucking dudes. Unbelievable. And then we got our genetic testing done and found out that he has FTO gene, which is the gene that basically causes your body to release the leptin for hunger, so that signals satiety. Doesn't have it. Makes total sense.
Wow. damn, I got screwed.
Dude,
I'm only 5'10". My shoulders are too wide to fit into normal shirts. I have enough leg, and dude, I gotta go back and talk to my mom.
Yeah, you got.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. I eat like a little bitch. Like all of a sudden, I eat, and I'm like, oh, I'm so full.
You gonna finish that?
And it looks like, oh, can I finish it? And then the thing is, and then I'm like, 2 hours later, I'm like, time to eat again. And so like I had to constantly eating because I couldn't eat a volume of food at anyone because I just get like.
Yeah, see, everybody looks at me and they're like, oh man, you could tear apart a buffet. Not unless I'm there all fucking day.
Yeah.
I lose money. Like all my friends always want to go to the Brazilian all-you-can-eat steakhouses. Like, yeah, I can only get the meat sweats and meat coma for so long, and then I'm screwed. I'm not paying that much money either. So, but being big and strong, though, man, it's saved my ass with that. But it also allowed me 8 weeks later to walk in the gym and start training again. At 10 weeks, I was already back squatting. Just not allowed to hold my breath anymore.
Oh, so
no Valsalva movement.
So they actually say that it does eject your fucking blood pressure, through the roof.
And if you got they rip a vein out of your leg, your saphenous vein out of your leg, after they unzip you and saw you in half like a circus trick. They tear the vein out of your leg, they cut it in pieces, turn it inside out, and that's what they bypass your other arteries with. So they have to turn it inside out because it has flaps. Then they sew it back in. I asked the doctor, a surgeon, I'm like, how do you sew it back in? He goes, it's like sewing wet tissue paper. Yeah, okay, buddy. Glad you can do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I saw the bill. And they do all of that. So, yeah, there can only be so much pressure on it. And I still hold my breath here and there. You can't power clean without hitting a nice little – and I try to breathe it out quick. But, I mean, at 16 weeks, I was back snatching. First snatch was a little weird when you figure about your sternum's been wired together and it's got glue. Yeah. That first one, I snatched it and I let it go and I like pulled my shirt up. I'm like, oh shit. All right. Well, hell, I'm still attached. I'm good. But I did everything with the doctor's approval. I wasn't going to be a dumbass and not do that. Maybe when I was in my 20s or 30s, yeah, I would have, but not at 54. And not with my wife looking over my shoulder because she'd beat my ass. Mm-hmm. So all 115 pounds of her. But so, I don't know. Like I said, being strong is what got me to where I'm at in life, but it's also kept me alive. So I guess it's the only thing honestly, it's the only thing I really like doing. Yeah. I like lifting weights.
Do you do anything like aerobic? Like do you do any cardio stuff or?
Yeah. I go walk a lot now. Except for this summer with this 100-degree heat. But and I superset a lot of stuff in my training now. It might not be fully aerobic, but I'm not taking – if I'm doing upper body, like a normal upper body workout for me is, inclines, and I'll superset that with some barbell rows. Or I'm going to do, I might do standing shoulder press, pull-ups. So I really don't do a lot of if I squat, I'm just going to squat. Because then I'm trying to catch my breath. But if I power clean, I'll do power cleans, and I do pulls as well. So I might put, so I have some old 10-kilo plates, the metal ones, and I'll power clean, 3 reps, and then I'll slide those on, and I'll clean pull 5 reps. So I'm not gonna really do any heavy deadlifts anymore. And I throw a lot of medicine ball. I still throw a lot of med balls. Mm-hmm. I still go out after every workout and probably 75, 80 throws, scoop tosses. I get lucky because the kids that I train, they have to do it, so I just get out there with them. I'll push sleds and talk shit to them while I'm pushing them because they're not strong enough to push them or body positions. But
have you ever met anybody that's allergic to deadlifting?
No.
I am.
I am.
It's a real condition.
It's a phenomenon that I'm the first time observing, and so I'm asking people that have been in the strength game a long time whether or not they've ever observed anybody that's allergic to deadlift.
Let me go ahead and explain the symptoms. 1, it's deadlift day. 2, you just go hard on your deadlifts and give it your all because that's how you train. You don't sandbag like your training partners, John. And then afterwards, you immediately get a cold.
Yeah.
Or like the flu.
Yeah, he
like,
literally is like
oh,
real deadlift, and then he will come home, and all of a sudden it'll be like 3 o'clock, and he's like, I feel terrible. I gotta go home. I think I'm sick. And I'll be like, shut the fuck up. I think where it started is we were doing we have a tendo. And so
Okay.
Oh God,
right,
that's horrible in itself.
right. So we were literally testing, like, we got really like tweaked on this idea of velocity-based training. The idea that, you know, there's a certain speed at which you should be able to move percentages, and like, is there and it really goes back to this idea that for me, coming out of Zangus's garage, I mean, a big thing we always talked about was compensatory acceleration. The idea that you have
Fred Hatfield coined that one. Yeah.
It's a fucking Hattie, and the idea of like, regardless, as mechanical advantage increases, you got to keep moving the weight. And for me, it was this huge thing for playing football. The idea that I'm always going to move as fast as I can. So we got onto a training deal, and a bunch of people were all fucked up. And I started talking to them; they'd never heard about it. So we got a tendo, and we started testing it and trying to figure out like how we could make people faster if they started moving the barbells and they started moving as fast as they can. Could it translate? So we get the tendo, long story short, and we start testing squats and bench, and we go to deadlift. And like, we had an idea how fast, and so we were like, well, fuck it, let's figure out what the times are.
Yeah,
on
let's just
rep
go
axis.
up.
Let's just go up and pull a fucking single, like max effort single, and see what we get. So Luke, I don't remember what's on the bar, but we lit up the tendo.
I think it was like 500 pounds maybe.
Yeah,
I'm not a good deadlifter.
It
but
wasn't a lot, right? Mind you, like Luke's
I'm mediocre at
he's
best.
kind of a short torso or a long torso, short legs.
Short legs. Yeah.
Not a great deadlifter by dimension or anthropometrical ratios.
And because of my allergy.
Yeah,
But
and his allergy. And so we go to deadlift. And what was the time?
So I break it off the floor, and it's going like, I don't even think it's moving. So I think the guys see that I'm about to like drop it, and you're like, go, pull.
No.
And I'm like, okay, I'm fucking going.
So he cracks it, and the bar is not going everywhere. And like, I can see the look in his face, like he's gonna give up. And I scream, I'm like, pull, go. And like, somehow it's like fucking like kicking a horse. All of a sudden,
a really old, slow horse.
Like eyes squint, and he's like, right, and strains this fucking 1 RM, and all of a sudden somehow
at the top of the lift, and he goes beep. Like, that's when it registers the speed. I'm like, what? I look over, and it's like 0.001.
Yeah.
I'm like, does it register that low?
Oh, dude,
and it was like we did the math, and it was like
lower.
22 seconds of deadlifting.
Yeah, like it was something. And so ever since that
And
day,
I got sick that day.
and, yeah,
You got sick that day.
now,
Shit, I'd have gotten sick that day watching it.
dude, it was literally like it was like I don't know if the Austin Powers, you remember when he's in the Zamboni and he's going to run the dude over, and he's like, and the dude's coming at him, and he's like, they go back and forth. That's what it was like watching his death. And literally, he got sick that day, and he got a cold, and then ever since then, we go to deadlift. It's the same thing. It's like the MRSA.
Except that one day I pulled more than Nate. And I didn't get sick that day. I thought for sure I had the MRSA.
Yeah, it's the MRSA of deadlifting.
Right.
Like you deadlift and it comes back.
But that was a rack pull too. So maybe just pulling from the ground I'm allergic to.
Maybe because what would be like rack pull? It was like 700-800 pounds or something crazy. And dude,
And pulling 5 off the floor at 22 seconds.
oh dude, I wanted to calculate the velocity of that, and then
You couldn't figure the math that slow.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I was, like,
Sundial.
what? I was like, is there a sundial that can work in this equation? They're like, it's one fucking.
Are you still doing any of the velocity training?
Yeah.
You know Dan Baker?
No.
Look up Dan Baker. He's in Australia. Tell him that I told you he's a really good strength coach. He does a lot of the stuff with I think it's that push armband, but he's toured a bunch and speaks a lot about the velocity-based training.
Yeah, what were you talking about?
He's in charge of Australia Strength Coaches Association.
I think I've
This name's come across our.
Yeah, we've come across. You know what? We got kind of an interesting deal in that we were always real big into like the velocity based stuff is important, but the problem is I don't believe you can fucking stick your whole camp in it.
Well,
and like the problem is people are like, oh, you need to hit this number, and I'm like, that's fine. But, you know, and I remember Dave Tate and I had a pretty good conversation where Dave was like, you know, we had the Tendo and we tried the velocity-based stuff at Westside. And he goes, I was, regardless of the weight on the bar, I was always the fastest, but I was never the strongest guy. He goes, I might have been the most powerful, but he goes, just low-end grunt strength. He goes, we had other guys that were fucking slow on 500 pounds and still squatted the same speed at 1,000. And so he's like, you know, and I was like, you know, I think that makes sense for powerlifting. You look at a sport like, you know, football or rugby or some of these, you know, speed power sports, and, you know, is it more important to be fucking low end, kind of max effort, that top level, top register strong, or is it more important to be, you know, be able to move, you know, 80% at, you know, I don't know, 0.78 meters per second?
Yeah, to me, you got to kind of cycle it in and out too, though.
Exactly.
And I don't need a Tendo unit every day to know that if that power clean wasn't quick enough and where it was quick. You know, you get some guys pull real slow from the floor, but at the hip, like a hang clean, oh, they're fucking golden. Or you got some guys just the opposite. It doesn't measure that part of it unless you set it up that way.
Well, but the other thing in, you know, what you've probably found intuitively is you can't power clean slowly. And if you do, you don't get the lift. So like people always ask me, I'm like, did you get the fucking lift? And it's like jumping up on a box. People are like, oh, I would love a way to be able to test the velocity of my box jump. I'm like, did you get the box jump or not? Like, that's the only thing I need to know, because there's no way to jump up on a box slowly, just like there's no way to power slowly.
No, there's no, you know, otherwise you end up with the starfish catch, you know, your feet all the way out to the edge of the platform, reverse curl, inverted C. I'm sure you played in the NFL. You've seen enough of that one.
Dude, to this day, I still tell these guys our fullback was a guy named Boomer Grigsby, and Boomer was pretty much the fastest, strongest white dude I've ever seen. He came in the weight room, and Boomer was like 5'11", just under 6 feet. He claimed 6 feet, but he wasn't. Probably about 230. And I was in there doing some ollie lifting, and he starts putting metal plates on and doing power cleans. And I'm thinking, this is going to be fucking great. He ends up at 405 and basically does this like muscle reverse, clean power thing,
inverted C.
Yeah, catch. I mean, it was pretty athletic. Like, it just a set of he was actually wearing turf cleats, so he's wearing cleats, right? Like not spike, but like, you know, like rubber cleats, and with his ankles taped, and power cleaning this, mind you, with like no tape on his wrist, and then proceeds to kind of dip his hips, and he push presses it over his head, brings it back down, and sets it down on the floor. I was like, is that pretty good? I was like, you realize you probably just set the American fucking record. Yeah. You got
a little bit of CRS there, crazy retard strength.
Insane. And then like we were fucking around one day, and he's like doing like consecutive back flips. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from? He's like, oh, I didn't tell you, my mom owned a gymnastics studio, and I was a world champion trampoline gymnast until I started lifting weights at 14 years old. And I was like,
what the hell?
Yeah. Right. So then I started, and I'm sure you've seen this too. Just, you know, like, you know, like I was a Berkeley grad, and, you know, I like to believe that as a Berkeley grad, I have a responsibility to be a little smarter than the average fucking bear. But like, I would always rap with dudes, especially if people had ridiculous, you know, athletic thing or something special about them. I'd always be like, oh, fuck, man, like, where'd you grow up? And start asking them a little bit about their history. And I used to get like people say weird shit like that, and I'd be like, mental notes, like Boomer, you know, trampoline gymnast, or you know, a girl I dated, her dad held the world record in the 800 meters, and her mom was NCAA champ 800 meters. And so I remember like talking to her dad one time about like, you know, like how did they grow up and different things, because her and her sister both ran you know, competitively in college and were, you know, could have ran in the Olympics, and like little things he said, or you know, or fucking Fred Hatfield, like, you know, just, I mean, he was a gymnast, or, you know, just, it's amazing when you talk to people about their background, and then you can kind of see these things, and you're like, oh, how'd you develop that, or how'd you grow up? You know, it's like, shit, who was it? The girl who's like the top female thrower right now, her dad was an NFL player, and he threw. I just watched the whole thing with that.
Oh yeah, that's
Carter. Dan Carter?
No,
it's
big old guy, Chris Carter? No.
Ruben Carter. No,
Ruben, there you go. Yeah,
Ruben. Yeah, Ruben. Or dude, I played with Andre Carter, whose dad was a defensive tackle for you know, for the Broncos forever. He was an NFL guy, and I remember, dude, talking with him about how Andre raced, and he's like, honestly, he goes, I had him do martial arts and taught him to Olympic lift, and he ran track, and you know, it wasn't until senior year of high school that he decided to come play. So I mean, like, all of these hierarchy things that you kind of look at, and it's funny because I've had so many really cool friends. You just kind of start just being like, oh, tell me about that one.
Yeah, it's like
Tim Duncan's the same way. I mean, Timmy, he swam. And the Hurricane Hugo didn't knock out the pool in the Virgin Islands, he'd be swimming in the Olympics. He would never have played basketball.
Oh,
shit, how about that?
Yeah. He's the same. David Robinson grew like 7-8 inches between, when he got appointed to the Naval Academy his senior year. All of a sudden he sprouted up. Like, where the hell kind of growth spurt did that one come from? I'm still waiting for my growth spurt.
How painful would that have been?
I know, but I'm just figuring my head is too fucking big, so it's weighing me down.
It could be gravity or the world's, stresses on your shoulders. But yeah, or Tony Gonzalez, who grew up playing basketball and then ended up being too big to be, or, not big enough to really be a power forward. And then, goes out there and is like, man, playing tight end in the NFL for 17 years, being the best to ever play was, he's like
catching rebounds,
just like rebounding dudes out, and he would run, box dudes out. So, I mean, and for me, like boxing and fighting as a young kid, all of a sudden now it's like I go out and I tell these guys a joke that, like, I remember the first time I went to go play football, it felt like fighting against dudes that didn't know how to fight, because all of a sudden dudes were running me with their hands down at their waist. And I remember thinking to myself, this is fucking terrible. These guys. But yeah, I mean, it's all about, developing these different kind of threads of athleticism or movement or whatnot, and then being able to use them in meaningful ways.
And this leads me to the question, and you mentioned Al Vermeil a couple times. So Al Vermeil, strength coach for the Niners, and then he jumps to the Bulls.
Yep.
Championships in 2 leagues.
Yep.
So the question is, have you seen a trend more towards sports-specific strength and conditioning? So a versatility like yourself as a strength coach, you got rugby, you got basketball, you name it. Versus a sports-specific or a specialty strength coach, which I know is very popular with the sport of basketball.
Yeah, somehow it's become very popular with a lot of sports. Rugby sevens is the same way, basketball, baseball. I still come from the old school of I don't believe that there's anything really sport-specific about weight training. I still think that it's to get you strong. And then, I'm not going to have NBA player pulling heavy deadlifts, just being smart enough to, know how to train somebody. But looking at the position, but I look at a lot of the age too. I mean, I get guys that are high school kids. Most high school kids look like drunken giraffes moving. So, they need to get a little stronger so they can just take their bodies through space. So, going from there, but I'm always going to train my athletes to be strong, to be explosive, to have a good full range of motion on everything, and to be flexible. I mean, we join yoga classes. I take them through stretches all the time. We don't just throw the med ball just from the hip. I put it on the ground and make them pick it up from the ground. Good position, throw. We're going to squat low. We're going to touch our chest with the bench press. We do standing shoulder presses and everything else. So I just try to train a good overall athlete, and try to be as all around as they possibly can. And then I get, when you get to the NBA level, then you're going to have a little bit more, but you're also looking at travel. You're going to look at, the sleep on the road. These guys don't fit in a bed. No matter where they're at, they're not fitting in a bed. I mean, the first time I always laugh about it. The first time I went to a practice at the Alamo Dome with the Spurs, half the team ran into the bathroom behind me. I'm like, oh, shit, everybody's got to pee at the same time. No, they were running in because the urinals are all made for them. I'm looking at it like I need a step stool to get up here. Sit on a commode, your feet don't touch the ground. The shower heads, I can't even touch the shower heads in the shower because they're built for them. So, little things like that, you don't think about it. So it's just like with the stuff in the back of like rugby jerseys or everything, measuring their, how far they've run, how, this and that. They make this, and NFL kind of started going into it. I'm like, man, rugby's been doing it for 10, 12 years longer than the NFL. And, you got a lot of research in that, but you can measure some of the things, but you can't measure how big a set of nuts a guy has.
Right.
You can't measure that the Michael Jordan being able to, have an IV shoved into him because he's got the flu, he's puking his guts up, and he's still out there, there's no way in hell he's going to come off the floor. You get guys that are just special that way, and then you get guys that get a hangnail and they got to be carted off in an EMS truck. So, I just look at it as I'm training you to be strong. If you're strong, you're going to be quick. You're going to be able to start and stop. We're going to teach good movements, everything else. Like I said, I always make a joke, man. If you want to be faster, I suggest you go back and get different parents. Make sure one of them has some really high calves, got that long Achilles tendon. I can make you a little faster. I can make you seem faster by teaching you how to start in a 40,
right?
Which isn't standing straight up and looking over the fence. But there's only so much that I can do with what I have. So I'll think that way for a long time. I use a combination of everything. Every athlete is different. I'm lucky that I train a lot of guys privately, so I can look at it. I don't have to look at some of my college buddies, but 105 football players to try to come up with a program for it. To kind of encompass everybody. So I can look at this guy needs to put a little bit of size on. We're going to do a little bit of bodybuilding. Heavy bodybuilding, with some other stuff and stay flexible. We're going to move over here. This guy's just slower than whale shit, so we're going to do more med ball throws, maybe some upper body plyos, some lower body plyos, like your deadlift. And sorry, brother.
That's all right. Hey, you know what? I'm okay.
But I always kind of really going to look at it that way. I really design a program individually for everybody I train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even with Ben and Owen being all the way down in New Zealand, when they were Ben was down there too. I was programmed what weight they moved. Mm-hmm. I would only see them once or twice a year, and then see them in videos or good feedback from them, really good feedback from them, and a good relationship with them. So if I said they needed to do this, that's what they were going to do. If they couldn't, we had to go back and see why. And then I would use some of the data that, they would send me. Well, I ran this far. It was a harder game. It was a harder practice. It was humid. It was humid in South Africa. And I got beat up a little bit more. So, go back and look at it there if they're missing some of their stuff.
Sure.
But I'll use some science, but I'm not using a lot of it. I'm using a lot of just observation, and then from doing it for so long, it's just a natural thing to me. To me, it's just natural. It's as natural as watching, my wife identify different things on a slide that I'm looking at going, yeah, the only thing nice about your lab is it's air conditioned. It's cold in here. That's the only thing nice in here. There's business guys that, they just look at a set of books and, look at it. There's NFL scouts that, oh yeah, that was a 4.35, and you look down at the stopwatch and son of a bitch, that was a 4.35.
No, those old scouts are funny, man. They'll call shit out. They do it. They do this, and they all fucking bet. And those guys are usually pretty accurate.
Yeah. So to me, what I do as a strength conditioning coach is just my natural gift. It's the one gift I got, because it sure as hell wasn't height or good looks.
Or a sense of humor.
No, hell no. You got to have a sense of humor growing up in Detroit, man.
Oh, I was going to say, fuck. And dealing with the amount of athletes that you've dealt with. Oh, fuck. I try to explain to these dudes sometimes. I'm like, man, you don't realize the level of prima donna.
Oh, yeah.
Like the fucking divas. And like football has got them, but fucking basketball? Oh,
basketball's got them really bad.
Dude, basketball might be the worst in terms of divas. Yeah, I mean, you got to think, they have, 11 dudes on the team?
Yeah.
Those guys, the fucking diva level, there was did you ever meet a guy, Dr. Craig Bueller? He was the
Jazz.
Basically, the personal physician for Karl Malone and John Stockton for the Jazz.
No, I would have loved to.
And he does a deal called AMID, Activated Muscle Integration Technique, and he's based out of Caseville, Utah. He's a friend of mine and somebody I've seen for a number of years. But those guys actually paid him out of their own pocket, and he was the only guy to treat them.
Yeah,
And so he wasn't associated with the team, even though he traveled. He did everything with the team, and he was just there for them personally.
There for them.
And they were like, that's how those guys played in their 40s, because Doc Bueller is, such a wizard in that way. And but I mean that level, and I remember asking Bueller about it. And he's like, honestly, I was the only one that treated these guys, the only one that worked on them. And he goes, and management wasn't going to say shit. He's like, that was the level of power that those dudes had. And he goes, basketball's such a different animal. I mean, football's got 53 on a team. You go down to 11. I mean, shit, we fly like cattle car compared to basketball. They got private jets and us, sitting coach.
One person to a room and everything else. And you get some divas with it. You get some hard workers, but it seems like some of those guys are coming few and far between. The same thing we talked about at the beginning with rugby down in Australia, New Zealand. You look at that English model of sport, which is what a lot of them follow.
Yeah,
they really don't get introduced to the weights or anything else like that early. So you look at that influx of European basketball players in the NBA, and some of those guys, they've never touched a weight. I've made it this far without it. Shit, I don't need to do it. And you got to come up and try to condense them and everything else with it. After a while, it just gets old. I've been training Ben and Owen. I mean, I train them all year long. Ben, not so much anymore because he's got a really good strength coach where he's at. And Owen's still training him. Gilly, who's the strength coach for the All Blacks, is a great guy. I have to be respectful and play nice. It's his team. Mm-hmm. But Owen does all of what I have him do. And Gilly gives me good feedback. Hey, if he's a little bit beat up, he'll tell me. I'll get an email from him once in a while, or the coach or something, and we just deal with it that way. But they don't have that's a nice thing. Those two, I don't want them to get a big head when they hear this, but I don't have egos with them. If I tell them, hey, this is what we need to do, and that's what they're going to do, and they're not going to do anything more or less, and we're good.
Yeah, that's kind of the best type of guys to have.
Well, I think if you grow up in it, and at least for me, it's like shit. I no ego about any of this stuff. I just want to be the best, and it's like I always laughed when guys were like arguing stuff. I'm like, dude, this is. I can see if the guy's a fucking knucklehead, but if you're out there, and the guy's here to make you better, man, just run 100 miles an hour and figure out if it's going to work or not. But, I used to watch guys butt heads all the time with the strength coaches, and I figured out the easier way to do it was, I'm going to do all that you want, but hey, can I do some extra? Mm-hmm. And I remember when I went to do the hammer strength that I had, came from, this Todd Rice Olympic lifting background, and we go and it's all hammer strength. And I asked him, I was like, I'm happily going to do your shit, but can I do some extra stuff? And literally, those dudes were so stoked. They were like, awesome. And designed a special program after a second year. Hey, you can do whatever you want. The guy said, went in there, this is stupid, I don't want to do it. Then everybody digs their heels in. I'm like, just fucking go do it. And it's not going to get you worse. Just keep doing what you want to on the side.
Yeah, just do the other stuff on the side.
Yeah.
Do the stuff that you want to do. But, you got to play nice ever so often.
Yeah, because
you can't be a flat asshole all the time.
Yeah, and like any professional doing their job, that doesn't want to hear they're an idiot unless they're an ATC and they're a fucking trainer, and then you're there to tape ankles and leave them the fuck alone. So
how those guys go to become strength coaches?
Well, you know why? They realized that they went to become strength coaches, then they could actually increase their fucking pay. And the problem is not a single one of those dudes has ever lifted a weight and has no fucking idea, and yet they're trying to go in there and tell people, oh, don't squat below parallel because it'll hurt your knees.
Or double D just getting roasted.
Fucking trainers, man. I used to literally light those fucking dudes up. I'm like, seriously, go ice them somebody and tape a fucking ankle. Leave me alone.
I'm the same way with them. I'm like, my whole deal is, have you ever met an athletic trainer that looked like he's ever exercised?
No.
Okay, but they're the ones that are telling you rehab, and they're the ones telling you all the other
professional standers. That's what they do. They're professional standing around guys.
No, I did have one in college. He was there for 1 year, and strength coach at Richmond University.
And he was an ATC.
Yeah, but then realized I am not empowering. I am wasting my life. And then he went and does strength and conditioning.
Oh,
see, there you go. Yeah,
I'm like fucking
1 year.
One guy.
Triple heel locks. That's all I need from you. Triple heel locks. I used to bust those dudes' balls. I'm like, not too tight, not too high. I'm gonna get calf cramp. I know. Oh yeah, dude, those guys are the worst. But also, some of my best friends, Eric Sugarman, Chris Peduzzi. Rick Burkholder. All those dudes. Some of my best friends in the world, and I love those dudes to death. But dude, I used to ride their fucking shit. I'd be like, Peduzzi, and he's the head guy for the Eagles, and then Shugs at Minnesota, and then Rick's at Kansas City, but all really good dudes. But God damn it!
Well, know where you're supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be in the athletic training room.
And you know what? Nobody should, because it's like it's like MRSA. You go in there and you become a training room guy, and then the next thing you know, you're fucking injured all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
I used to tell the young guys, like, oh, you got any advice? Stay out of the fucking training room. Don't even eat in there. That shit's like fucking
don't go in there.
Yeah, it's like herpes. If you're around it, you'll get it. Don't get herpes.
Yeah. I tell the kids all the time when they're going off to college, avoid the training room. Stay out of the physio's room. You don't need to go in there. You don't even need to go in there and look for ice. Have them go inside and bring you ice.
We used to go in there and use the cold tub. So like the cold tub is off the side. I try to like slurp through, but yeah, goddamn. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I never. Yeah, no. I mean, you get them that come in that want to be strength coaches, or I mean, I love Coach Pop to death, and he and I had a really good relationship. And one day he was yelling about something, and a couple of guys were doing some stuff after a game. Like, I'm just doing what I was told. You know, I'm low, man. I don't even have an office. I'm so low here. And he laughed and off he went, but he kind of ripped into my boss and what we were doing. And so the couple of days later at practice, he was saying something. It was kind of a light moment in training, and I just grabbed the clipboard and I started racing everything. I'm like, all right, well, you need to go over here and you need to go there. And he just looks, he's like, because his whole name for me was Fat Ass. Fat Ass, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, well, you came in the weight room like a strength coach. Shit, I'm coming out here like a basketball coach. And I get sent back to the bench. Or Coach Egan, who was Pop's coach at Air Force Academy. I had cone drill set up and some speed ladders and some other stuff. And Coach Egan's like, man, that looks a lot like football. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, you know what? You're right. Basketball doesn't change direction or sprint. I started kicking cones everywhere. I'm like, all right, everybody on the line. Let's go ahead and just backpedal to half court and then turn and jog to the other end of the floor. That'll be what we do today. And he just looks at me like, you're an ass. And just walked off from me.
Well, fuck it. I mean, but I mean, this is part of the pushback, and I think what people don't understand is that, and some we fucking preach forever is like, you train people to be athletic.
Yeah, I'm trying to be athletic.
Athletes move in space, they change direction, they bend, they jump, they move. I mean, they can do this, they move distance, they push, they pull, they do all these things, and then basically you set them up to, hone their skills so that when they go and they actually go in to play their sport, they develop their sport-specific application.
Right. There's the sport-specific is the football coach or the basketball coach. That's sport-specific.
Yeah.
Training has to be more intense. Yeah, well, training has to be more intense than the game because otherwise you're not going to get a training response. So my conditioning is much more brutal than any of the game. My weight training is going to be the same. My conditioning runs, my sprint runs, because I'm trying to elicit a response from the body. And I want to beat the shit out of it and then get it to recover. And then we're going to go ahead and move on from there. And instead of, I'm just going to play to get in shape. And basketball is famous for that one. They don't do anything all summer long, and they're just going to play. They're going to play themselves into shape. And the season will be over by the time you get into shape. So somebody's jamming.
Yeah.
Oh. Talking about old piece of shit diesels. Unbelievable. Did you hear it go by? That thing's a hunk of shit. It literally, the whole thing looks like it's covered in cellulite. It has so many dents. That's Will's truck. I tell him, I'm like, your car got cellulite. Where are all those dents on there? It looks like it's ass. And he's like, yeah, that's what it looks like.
A tree fell on it. What am I supposed to do?
You're supposed to call the fucking insurance company. Shit.
And not just get the check and buy beer with it.
Yeah,
no,
right.
Well, he didn't even get the check. A tree fell on him, and then he was either not on the ball enough, and so he filed the claim 2 years later, and they were like, fuck off.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, dude, they denied it. I'm like, wasn't that 2 years ago? He's like, well, yeah, I just finally got the paperwork in. I was like, oh, Jesus, we got to talk to you a little bit.
God, no shit, that's funny.
So, well, Ed, that was awesome. Thank you very much for
I don't know how you're going to edit all this shit out, but go ahead.
Dude,
we don't. We just let it ride.
Yeah, we just let it ride. It's fucking great. We actually have Callie who goes through it. She'll go out and pair out. Hopefully she cuts out some of the curse words and, any of the loud motor noises. But
and any deadlift stories.
Wait a minute. Callie, the deadlift story.
Somebody cursed?
Yes, dude. But thank you very much. That was awesome.
Oh, no, thank you.
And dude, when we jump online, we'll send out our contact, dude, and we'll love to get together with you and buy you a small.
Hell yeah. Well,
you're out in Cyprus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Katy, so
okay.
Up the highway from you.
Yeah, I'm up 290, 1960.
All right. Yeah, so I'll definitely be back in town soon, so I'll have to swing by and connect with you.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, let's do that for sure. And I got to come out there to harass the fuck out of Aaron. So I'm not going to I'm not going to New Zealand this year. So
now, Ed, you don't strike me as a social media guy, but I'm over here on playhardtrainharder.com, and that's your site, right? Are you on Instagram?
Yeah.
Everything else?
Yeah. Instagram and Facebook.
All right. So how people find you there?
Just on Ed Cosner.
Ed Cosner. Look him up. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ed, hey, it was great having you on, man. And like all these guys said, I look forward to crossing paths with you in the future.
Man, me too, man. I look forward to getting out there and get some training in.
There you go.
Yeah, I might have to step up my deadlift because I don't know how big my deadlift is anymore.
Single leg, I'm sure, you meaty.
But I mean,
he's like
rotund individual.
He's like, yeah, I got no Widowmakers, I got fucking artificial parts, and I'll still smoke.
Yeah, throw 700 on the fucking deadlift.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I had to bench with Aaron, so fuck that.
There you go.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.
See ya.
See you.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Ed Cosner is available for your viewing pleasure and inspiration on Instagram. Just search the full name Ed Cosner. That's EDCOSNER. And don't forget, Wade's Army's 5th annual Wade's Day campaign has officially kicked off. From now until November 12th, we will be honoring the brave pediatric cancer patients battling neuroblastoma, a tumor derived from immature nerve cells. For 2016, we're embracing their valor and highlighting their nerves of steel. Join the fight against neuroblastoma and help us reach our goal of fundraising $125,000. Enlist today at wadesarmy.org by clicking the Donate Now badge and claim your limited edition Wade's Army uniform. Every Army needs a uniform. Until next time, bye!